Hello and welcome into the CitrusTV studios for this week's edition of Beat the Bookie. I'm Arnav Pokhrel, and if you were to ask me what I was most excited to do when I turned 21, I would have told you the most exciting thing for me would be to sit right here in this chair and tell you all about my betting ideas for the weekend. And thanks to the producers of the show, I'm allowed to do just that. So sit back, relax, and get ready to make some money.
Hey, Jerry, you better yell! Show me the money! Show me the money!
But before we can do that, we have to head back to last week's picks and see how Nico Horning did in our first show of the semester. Now, Nico is not the greatest betting mind, but he did not too bad for himself. A big win in that Texas San Jose State under, but a big loss on the parlay. He also has a future still up for grabs, a total loss of minus $10, and well, I'm here to make all that money back. So now that we know how Nico has done, let's get right to the big games. Our first big game of the week takes us down to good old Rocky Top, where number 6 Georgia takes on number 15 Tennessee. The Bulldogs are 8-2 against the spread in the last 10 meetings against the Volunteers. Don't get me wrong, Josh Heupel has brought Tennessee back into the SEC conversation, and he has a 21-1 record at Neyland Stadium over the last 3 years. That means the Volunteers should have a fighting chance, right? Wait, I said 21-1? That's because Georgia beat Tennessee 38-10 in 2023. There are just some things that remain college football tradition, and right now, Tennessee's 8-game losing streak to Georgia precedes Heupel. As much as I want to believe in Joey Aguilar's decision-making and the stellar run game highlighted by Star Thomas, I mean, the guy's literally named Star. How could you not believe in him? The Georgia defense is chomping at the bit to get going. After drubbing Marshall and Austin Peay, this is the first real test for UGA. And don't expect the Bulldogs to take this lightly. I've got my faith in Kirby Smart to run away with it at the end. $10 on the Georgia cover kicks us off. We'll head down to Hard Rock Stadium in what many are calling the game to find out the best team from Florida. And no, it does not involve the Gators. The Miami Hurricanes are hosting the hottest team in all of college football, South Florida. An 18-16 victory over Florida, and the Bulls quarterback Byron Brown has announced himself as a dark horse for the Heisman. USF has a pair of ranked wins, and Brown is averaging over 200 passing yards each game so far this season. I love what head coach Alex Golesh has done in Tampa, so it pains me to say this. Expect all of that to come crashing down this Saturday. For all the hype around Brown, Miami quarterback Carson Beck is making a Heisman case of his own. Beck has silenced the doubters, putting up 200 yards against Notre Dame in the season opener for the Canes. The 6th-year redshirt senior, yeah, that's a handful, also started the game against Bethune-Cookman with 15 straight completions. Beck is a quarterback that has been there and done that, and he has a strong supporting cast around it. Mark Fletcher Jr. helps Miami wear teams down, and I think the trenches is where this game is settled. I've got $10 on Miami to cover 17.5 points and trust that the size in Miami's offensive and defensive lines can help the Canes get over the hump. Over to South Bend for a top 20 matchup, and this is the one I'm walking into with the least amount of confidence. The Notre Dame backfield struggled in the opening week loss to Miami, missing 12 tackles on the way to that 3-point loss. Texas A&M has had success on the offensive side of the ball. The team ranks top 10 in plays over 20 yards in the nation and has an offensive line that has not allowed any pass rush this season. No, really. The line has a perfect 0.0 pressure percentage. However, while the Aggies do well in pass possession, they lack in run blocking. And with the Notre Dame defensive tackle Jared Dawson looking to build off of a solid game against Miami, that gives me some worries for the team from Texas. While the offense is clicking in maroon, allowing 24 points to UTSA and 22 to Utah State does not give me confidence in the Aggies. On the other hand, Notre Dame is coming off of a bye week with a lot to improve on after the Miami loss. This game being a pure shootout, two defenses that haven't been at their best, that's how I see this one falling out. If Notre Dame can fix the tackling issues, expect the Fighting Irish to have the last laugh. Let's put 10 Washingtons on the Notre Dame cover and see that defensive coordinator Chris Ash can make adjustments in his second game at the helm in South Bend. Well, that's all we've got for the big games. Let's take a look at how the C-Suite aims to take on this week's big matchups against my picks. Well, we disagree on the first game, that's UGA and UT, but we agree on Notre Dame, we agree on Miami, and well, the hosts are 3-0, so I think we know who to trust in this one. That's all from the C-Suite. Now let's take a look at my best bets. As a kid from Nebraska, if I can't cheer for Husker football, you can always catch me rooting against the Iowa Hawkeyes. UMass heads to Kinnick Stadium in Iowa City, and I can think of nothing less exciting than watching this game. I mean, the Iowa offense, well, I'll hold off on my condemnation of Iowa without giving them a compliment first. Iowa, really good punting. Let's get back to the offense. Mark Gronowski, the transfer from South Dakota State, has 127 pass yards in 2 games. That's 2 games. He's got more rushing touchdowns on the season than passing, but seeing as he plays for an Iowa team that only passes 41% of the time, I shouldn't be shocked. UMass is no better. The Minutemen have just lost to FCS team Bryant in a 27-26 result. The pass defense has been shaky, and UMass hasn't won a game against a non-FCS team since October of 2023. This is going to be a tough match on the road, and there are a plethora of injuries for the Minutemen. Starting quarterback Brandon Rose is out injured, alongside wide receivers Ty Harding and Jake McConaughey, who will also be absent from the match. Oh, but that's not all. 2 offensive linemen, 2 cornerbacks, 1 safety, and 1 defensive lineman, all of them not available for Iowa. This is a Minutemen team that gets shut out on Saturday. I have no doubt about that. But my question is, does Iowa really score 42 points? And to that, I have to say no. Give me $15 on the Iowa under, and let's hope the matchup won't have a running clock by halftime. We'll head now to Clemson and Georgia Tech in the ACC. Clemson coming in as the number 12 team in the country. But the Yellow Jackets have been electric on offense, and it's all thanks to the play of Haynes King. The quarterback has been elite on the triple option and already has 1 Maxwell Player of the Week award under his belt for his 3-touchdown performance against Colorado. However, there are some concerns about his health. As a dual-threat running quarterback, King has been rocked a few times this season, and Clemson is a much tougher team on defense than Colorado or Gardner-Webb. However, there are still questions about the Clemson offense as well. The Tigers struggled out of the gates against Troy, finding themselves down 16-0 at one point in the second quarter. For the first 6 quarters of the season, Clemson rushed 31 times for 48 yards. The answer to that against Troy in the second half, 202 total yards in the third and fourth, Cade Klubnik leading his team to 27 unanswered points to win the game. I've got 5 smackers on the Tigers to cover a much closer spread than expected, and for one reason only. A Dabo Swinney-led team does not stumble twice in a row, and expect a much better start from Clemson this weekend. With these early season games, there's sometimes nothing to build off of except for a gut feeling. So that brings me to my underdog of the week. We'll head down the East Coast. Old Dominion and Virginia Tech face off in a night game, and I've got some faith in the Monarchs to make some noise. ODU quarterback Colton Joseph struggled in the season opener against Indiana, throwing 3 interceptions. However, even with that poor of a game, the Monarch defense battled hard, and Joseph did as well. He ran for 2 touchdowns to keep the game close. Tech is hungry for a win after starting the season 0-2, but being outscored 34-0 in the second half against Vanderbilt does not inspire me to pick the ACC side. The offensive line has struggled all season long for VT, and with starting linemen Johnny Garrett and Montavious Cunningham injured in that Vandy loss, the Hokies have been playing Jenga this week in practice to put a game plan together. Both linemen are still questionable for this game, but either way, I've got $10 US on the Monarchs to make some noise in Lane Stadium. With the money line at plus 220, feels like good value to bet on ODU. We'll head over to the desert for a Wildcat battle as Kansas State faces Arizona. After losing to ranked Iowa State in Ireland to kick off the college football season, that K-State team has just gone worse and worse and worse. That Ireland game curse really kicking in for the Wildcats. Since returning from across the pond, Kansas State has had an abysmal run. The Wildcats squeaked by FCS North Dakota. Just to be clear, that's North Dakota, not 10-time FCS champions North Dakota State, before losing in a heartbreaker to Army. If there's one positive for K-State, it's that all of the matches have been close. Avery Johnson hasn't been at his best to start the season, and his yards per attempt continues to drop in each game as the Wildcats look to get him going. Arizona has 2 big wins to start the year, scoring over 40 points in each of them and holding opponents to less than a touchdown in each as well. However, those 2 opponents, Hawaii and Weber State. That doesn't really inspire me either. But that's 2 crucial tune-up games to prepare Arizona to host this one. Quarterback Noah Fafita is in his groove, and the run game looks solid, even without Kedrick Rashano, who missed that Weber State game with an injury. One final thing to note about this game, I'm a sucker for retro logos, uniforms, anything old school really, I love it. Arizona's bringing back the old red block A for this matchup, and for that reason, I'm putting 10 smackers on the Arizona money line on Friday night, which would double up and turn to 20 if it hits. Vegas has gone back and forth on this game, but for me, it's a clear choice. If that Arizona run game gets going, they're winning this game at home. We head back to the SEC, where I get a chance to look at what is probably my most daring pick of the week. Vanderbilt and South Carolina meet in conference play, and both teams boast dual-threat quarterbacks that have high aspirations this year. Vandy's Diego Pavia is using that extra JUCO year to the fullest extent, passing for over 450 yards and 5 touchdowns. However, Pavia is a big threat in the ground game as well, and South Carolina hasn't faced a quarterback as talented as him. For the Gamecocks, Lenore Sellers continues to be at the forefront of all these nationwide Heisman conversations. It hasn't been a great start to the season for him, though, as the South Carolina offense has looked stale in 2 wins against Virginia Tech and South Carolina State. That's exactly why I think this is his breakout week. Sellers has to prove that this South Carolina team can compete in the SEC, and head coach Shane Beamer has been critical of the team's offensive production so far. This is a heavyweight battle in terms of playmaking, and all the focus is going to be on the quarterbacks. So that begs the question, which team has the better overall supporting cast? And that's an easy answer for me. South Carolina has the defense to keep Pavia at bay, and the offensive pieces that are chomping at the bit to get going. The Gamecocks are desperate for a 100-yard rusher this season to complement Lenore Sellers, and I see Oscar Attaway III as the man for that job. If he can establish the run early and take some attention away from Sellers, expect the Gamecocks to be in the driver's seat. I've gone ambitious with this pick. We're putting 10 bones on an alternate spread, South Carolina minus 9.5. While I'd be more comfortable just having this as a money line pick, of course we all would, we're here to win big money, not small money. So I'll put it on the Gamecocks to win by 10 or more. For my future, I went to the conference championship games, and the only reason I didn't go to the playoffs, well, I'd rather see my pick come true in the fiscal year of 2025 rather than 2026. Trust me, taxes are complicated. With so many conferences being up in the air early on this season, I found it hard to see a clear winner in the Big Ten or the SEC, so I went to what I know best, the Midwest. I look at this Iowa State team, and I find it hard to see any other squad in the Big 12 that can match up with the talent they put out on a weekly basis. Rocco Becht is an elite game manager, 600 yards, 6 touchdowns, no picks, and he's got the pieces around him to support a run to the college football playoff. Junior running backs Carson Hansen and Abu Salma III are the 1-2 punch that the Cyclones have needed to get back to the hard-nosed football that head coach Matt Campbell wants them to play. The 2 toughest games for the Cyclones this year, Arizona State and BYU, are at home, which gives me faith that the Cyclones will be in Arlington come December. And after last year's heartbreak in the championship game, I believe the Cyclones can get over that last hurdle. $5 on the Cyclones at plus 700, and even if we have to wait the whole college football season for it, I'll be watching along eagerly. However, I'm not the only host with a future, so let's take a look at how the rest of the outstanding Beat the Bookie hosts stand in their future bets, as well a couple from baseball that are still yet to be designed, and, well, you've got mine, and you got one from last week as well that we're waiting on. So, hey, a lot to look forward to, and maybe some money to be made. That's all for my picks. Let's toss it over to Jared Valentin, who has our parlay of the week.
Thanks so much, Arnav. An in-state battle, points, and history repeating itself. That's this week's parlay in a nutshell. It's my first time on the show, and first impressions are important. We need to hit the ground running, and so what better way to do that than bet on a team who has already hit the ground running on the gridiron? That brings us down to the Sunshine State. Number 18, South Florida, has shocked the nation 2 weeks into this season. 2 ranked upsets over then number 25 Boise State and then number 19 Florida. A third top 25 win makes USF the first team since Miami in 1987 to start a season with 3 straight ranked wins. The Bulls are chasing history, but the Hurricanes are their toughest challenge yet. A deadly 75% completion rate for a squad that racks up 30 points a game. USF makes it interesting, but Miami gets the win. I have South Florida covering the 17.5. For our next pick, we need points, and a lot of them. Number 19 Alabama had a much-needed bounce-back win with a 73-0 beatdown against Louisiana Monroe. It welcomes Wisconsin in Week 3. The Badgers rushed for nearly 400 yards and 4 touchdowns across their 2 wins, which is perfect against the Crimson Tide's struggling defense. Alabama's front 7 is not even in the top 100 in ground yards, with 162 allowed a game. 52 total points were scored when the two met up last year. Give me over 46.5 points scored between Alabama and Wisconsin. Now for ESPN College Game Day's Week 3 pick, number 6 Georgia and number 15 Tennessee. This rivalry has been completely one-sided for almost a decade. The Bulldogs have won 8 straight over the Volunteers since 2016. And get this, Tennessee was held to under 20 points in all but one of those games. On top of that, the Volunteers defense has taken some hits. Cornerbacks Ricky Gibson and Jermon McCoy are still out with injuries. Arnav, I'm right there with you. History repeats itself. I've got the Bulldogs on the money line at -178 to round out our 3-leg parlay. So to recap, South Florida covers against Miami, Alabama and Wisconsin hit the over, and Georgia takes down Tennessee on the road. At +470, $10 gets us $47.10. Arnav, it's time to recap your picks from today's show.
So to start, I picked Georgia to cover -3.5 against Tennessee, but $10 on Miami to cover 17.5 points against USF, and $10 on Notre Dame to cover 6.5 against Texas A&M. Then we get to my best bets and my personal favorite one of the night, UMass and Iowa under 42.5. And then we've got $10 on Clemson -2.5 against Georgia Tech. The other ones we've got, my dog of the week is Old Dominion +220 at Virginia Tech. We've got Kansas State and Arizona at +106 on the Wildcats. That's the Wildcats from Arizona, not the Kansas State Wildcats. And then we've got South Carolina to cover -9.5 on an alternate spread. My future is Iowa State to win the Big 12, and then Jared's parlay, USF +17.5, Wisconsin at Alabama over 46.5, and Georgia at Tennessee. Well, that's all the time we have here on Beat the Bookie. Thank you to our producers, Griffin Bloomstein and Adam Hipsky, for letting someone who used to produce the show back at the desk for his betting prowess. I've had a great birthday week. This is the culmination of it, giving you my betting picks for the week. Thanks to everyone for being involved, and as always, bet responsibly.